Hey everyone, all right, let's do this. Let's dive into a subscriber question I had that came through, which piqued my interest because it's an issue that I've been having for a lot of my life, and that is the question of how do you get rid of obsessive thinking? So over the top rumination, thinking about the same thing over and over again, allowing your brain to kind of go into a mental loop over and over again like a broken record on certain things. The issue, of course, is when you obsess in thought on something negative, because thinking negatively is obviously going to affect your mood, your state, your reality is going to shift because you are focused on something negative, and that's going to make you miserable, that's going to make you depressed. That's what leads to a lot of the problems we see in the modern world, and just the human world. Issues with negative thinking are never a good thing because it affects our soul, our very physicality. Everything we do and think is affected by how we think. So if we're thinking obsessively about negative things, that's not going to be a good thing. That's going to hold you back in a big way, like it has in many ways for me. So obsessive thinking could be something that keeps you up at night. You could be worrying about everything and anything, or one particular thing. It could be that you've got a monster under your bed that you're worried about that's not even there. Actually, in many cases, obsessive thinking is usually about things that don't even exist, which we'll get to. It could be about a certain aspect of you that you are worried about, that you've got a complex about, that you overly obsess about in anticipation of maybe going out to meet people. You might think you've got a big nose, or you've got, you sweat too much, or you blush too much. And of course, by thinking about it over and over again, in trying to fix it, you only make it worse, because whatever you focus on, you will exaggerate, you will emphasize that in your mind's eye. So if you think about a certain thing, whether that, let's say that you're worried that you've got big ears, and you obsess about those big ears, you're just going to increase and amplify your anxiety around that because the focus is there. So that's the first indication, that's the first sign we can use in finding a solution to obsessive thinking. And because I've had the issue myself, worrying about how I come across to other people in social events and things like that, I like to think that I've gotten pretty good now at handling that and putting an end to obsessive over the top rumination. Now you might be thinking that I'm probably going to talk about meditation or something, or exercise. Those are all the obvious ones. Meditation is obviously going to be a good thing, but I think that people tend to find a way to avoid confronting the real issue, which is to actually go and take action in life. Go out and move into reality. Get off your sofa. Get out of the house. Those are always the real solutions to mental issues, I find, rather than sort of sitting still and trying to improve your mind internally. That's great. I think meditation is powerful, but I think it's sort of 10% out of the full 100% of what you can be doing. And I wanted to address one of the other methods you can use, and I think there are probably quite a few. You need to think of these things holistically, and meditation is certainly one aspect, and doing it is going to quiet and slow down the mind, which is obviously a good thing for obsessive thinking. But I think that it's never going to quite smother the problem in the way that taking action will. So what do I mean by taking action? I mean, first of all, before we talk about actually taking actions that are going to improve the way we think, we need to talk about where we focus. So right now, if you're thinking obsessively and you're worrying too much about certain things, it's because your focus is there. And the way the mind works, for whatever reason, is we tend to get kind of hooked on things we think of a lot, so it can spiral out of control. So the solution to that, in very simple terms, is to change where you're focused. And the way to do that is to think about what it is that's drawing you to your obsessive thoughts right now. It's stuff that you're getting emotional about. It's stuff that is important to you. It's stuff that matters to you, whether it's real or not. If you're worried about there being a monster in your cupboard, you're gonna have an emotional reaction to that. You're going to get fearful, even if it's not there, because this is the power of our crazy monkey minds, is we get overly excited about things that don't even exist. But the key thing is that we have an emotional reaction to it. We have an emotional connection to whatever that thing is that we're worried about. And really the only way to sort of pull ourselves away from something that's emotional in one direction that is not helping us we need to start thinking about something else we can think about emotionally. And we want to be positively emotional about other things so that we can just simply detach from the negative stuff that isn't even real for the most part and move towards things that are positive for us. And really the solution that I think has been the most powerful for me is to start thinking about how you can transform your life for the better in all aspects. This is about figuring out what goals you might have that are exciting in life again. You need to start thinking like someone who doesn't think obsessively, if you know if that makes any sense. You've just got to be that version of you who doesn't get obsessed and doesn't think irrationally about certain things and doesn't get hung up on negative things. And the way to do that is to get hung up in a very different way, a very similar way, obsessively about positive things in your life. You need to get obsessively positive about where you could go, how you could improve, how you can be the best at what you do, how you can improve your skills. These are things that you can slowly but surely over time get more and more emotional about, and that's where the power is that's going to attach you to those positive thoughts. So use that innate human energy of obsessiveness. Obsessiveness is not a bad thing. I think a lot of us are brought up to associate obsessiveness with some kind of negativity, that we're, completely mental maniacs. I think obsessiveness is simply a manifestation of our being alive as humans, being engaged. That is what obsessiveness is. We're all going to be obsessed about something. And the problem with obsessive thinking is that we haven't found something to attach to that we can get obsessive in a positive way with. And so because we don't have that, we drift across and we start worrying about things that we don't even need to be worrying about. That's just the way that we are. So rather than getting hung up on trying to fix and find a solution to and get therapy for and sort of dig deep into your issues and to the worries, just about face and focus on what you could do to change your life and for the better. That has been really, really helpful for me, is just forgetting all the dark shit, accepting that it's there, knowing that it's kind of lingering. It's going to fade when the more focus you put somewhere else. It's all about changing focus. It is not about fixing those issues. The only thing that comes close to fixing problems and worrying thoughts is meditation. And of course, meditation works because you're training your mind to concentrate on something specific, i.e. nothing really. I don't really know the ins and outs of meditation, but you're training your mind not to think about negative things, and you're training yourself to look at thoughts in a detached way. And that's a good tool that I think will help you in what I think is even more important in this aspect, is to sort of really motivate yourself to live a successful life, not just in one thing, but in many things. So it's a big issue. I could talk about this for a long time, but in a nutshell, if you've got obsessive thoughts and you think about things over and over again that are negative, that make you feel awful, that affect your demeanor, that make you anxious, that make you depressed, start thinking about how you could live a life that the successful version of you would live. If you could somehow dig deep into yourself and find that successful version of yourself who was positive and always looking forward, looking into the future, who was always dreaming about amazing things and was always working on developing mastery in themselves. And actually, if you can find a way of believing in that part of you that is aspirational and wants to do amazing things in the world, that's where the secret is. Because that's going to change your mode of thinking. That'll slowly, over time, and possibly very quickly in many cases, it's going to turn you into a very positively obsessive person towards success. And that's great. See what that does to your obsessive thoughts and worries. They're gonna die out. They're gonna be smothered by the successful, positive focus on self-improvement, self-development, and improving your life situation in such a way that it becomes enjoyable again. It becomes fun. You're kind of enjoying the thrill of the chase, moving towards your goals and your passions, but also being in the moment as well, obviously. But I always say that being in the moment comes out of having dreams. I think you need to be guided through to something in order to really enjoy being in the present. I think if you don't have a future, you don't have a present really either, because you're kind of just floundering, and that tends to mean that you slip back into your old ways, into your old negative habits. So have something to aspire to, some kind of a dream, many dreams. And if I could leave you with just another supercharger for getting past obsessive thinking is to try and identify what it is that there's a reason you're thinking obsessively about if it's something specific. Say, for example, you're obsessing, you worry that you don't socialize enough. That was always an issue for me. You worry that you aren't networking and getting out of the house enough. That's usually an indication, especially if you're obsessively thinking about it. It's usually an indication of something that, were you to overcome that challenge in your life, you would benefit massively. It would, it's stuff that your soul is calling out to you to address. And I think you know what I mean by that. There's usually a reason behind an obsessive thought, because unless it's completely irrational. Many times we think obsessively because it's our inner self is telling us, whatever it is, there's some voice telling us to address it. And that could be an indication of something that you need to sort of confront and move into the fear. Just do it. In my case, I know that when I start thinking obsessively about needing to get out more, I know that I need to address that, and I know that I need to just not only deal with it, but turn it into something that I can really attack and really become great at, rather than sort of just sort of solving the problem. I think it's more about reaching into greatness in that area. Really think about how you can master that. So everyone's different. It's difficult to pinpoint an example, but it could be that what you're obsessing about is something that it's a window towards something that you need to become great at. And when you, for example, if you decide to get really good at public speaking, say, rather than running away from it and getting those obsessive thoughts and worries and insecurities that come out of you, worried that you're not doing it, confront it and decide to become the very best in the world at that. And by really mastering your fears, there's nothing else you could really find difficult in the world after that point, if that makes sense. A lot of your fears and your worries and your obsessive thoughts will start to fizzle away once you start really addressing and confronting those fears that you tend to have quite a lot. So use them as sort of indications as to where you should move. Use your fears and your obsessive thoughts as possible signals to show you where you need to be going and what kinds of fears you need to be confronting. Okay, I hope that helped, guys. Really, if you've got any questions, I know that it's a thorny topic, and if you've got any worries well, hopefully you haven't got any worries after this chat, but do send me a comment. Always keen to hear from you guys, and make sure that you like and subscribe. Take care.